from WBRN Radio in Boston and on the Boston Red Network. The title of the episode, The Broken Dream. The Trump administration, through its chief henchman, spokesman, whatever you want to call him, Beauregard Sessions, the Attorney General, announced today that the Trump administration would be ending the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival program, otherwise called the DREAMER program. Since they were children, this is what they were, subject to removal once their government-issued work permits expired under the Act. It's 800,000 of them. The estimate is that sparks fears amongst applicants. And also at the same time, you hear echoes of Willard Romney, self-deportation, that some are thinking that it is not worth it here. I'm looking at the article from the Washington Post, and we'll read a statement from the former President Barack Obama in the minute here. The Trump administration called on lawmakers to determine the ultimate fate of DREAM Act recipients known as Dreamers, Act recipients, and emphasized no work permits will be revoked for 6 months. Well, to give Congress time to act. In a political sensitivity, involved in this, DJ Trump did not make the announcement. He sent Beauregard Sessions out there. In a written statement, Trump asserted that the Obama made an in-run around Congress that violated the core tenets of that sustained our republic. He added that there will be no path to principled immigration reform if the executive branch is able to rewrite or nullify federal laws at will. That is actually silly, and it makes no sense at all. But one of the things to remember, the Dreamers Act and the supporters of the Dreamers Act, it is a business act. It is based upon firm business principles in terms of shortages of workers. Now, what is happening, we see that happening in the aftermath of the Hurricane Harvey down in Houston and the surrounding area, that there are not enough workers there to do the cleanup. And this is becoming an issue across various sectors of the economy, particularly the retail sector, the construction sector, are hit very hard by issues of immigration. And this will filter out into so-called information technology or high tech because of the number of immigrants involved there. This is a short-sighted program, short-term results, but with an estimated 11 million immigrants, illegal immigrants, undocumented workers in the country. If all were deported at once, and given that 90%, 95% are employed, then you would have a situation, a very big hole to fill within a matter of days or weeks. It just could not be done in certain sectors of the country. And this is what's happening with some restaurants that are forced to cut the days that they operate because they cannot find workers. Not an excuse given that the enumeration of salaries, wages, etc. are subpar. They are in many cases. It's also working conditions and the changing habits of people. We did a story, I believe this was from the Post, perhaps it was combined sources as they now call it, that many workers in manufacturing that have been in manufacturing for a number of years, we would say 5 or 10 years or more, are leaving manufacturing jobs because of the wear and tear on their bodies. People now are getting a different type of mindset, and more a sustainable mindset, and as people grow into that, they will decide that making $15 or $20 at the factory, they can get another job even if they lose $5 or even if they lose $10. They'll still have their lives depending on their position, economic position. Now, if the economic position is very tenuous at $20 an hour, it probably will not matter for workers, say if it's 35 to 40 years old, and there are opportunities in the so-called gig economy that are still there. But if you look at Uber, Lyft, or any of the so-called big gig type operators, they are moving as fast like a maiden from a typhoid ward to self-driving autonomous cars. What does that mean? There will be less humans driving around with those little stickers on it that say Uber or Lyft, and that is a fact. And also because of automation or robotics, there will be less people doing many of these jobs. And in information technology, self-programming programs, etc., less programmers are needed, less developers, less architects, because many of the pivotal issues will be solved. Now we're to virtual reality type programs. Well, people are going to that. But what happens in information technology mimics many things in a society, according to Moore's law, that every few months processes will double their power. That is sort of stuff. Moore used to be the CEO of an organization called Intel. But nonetheless, because things are moving now, you would think they are moving rapidly, but in many quarters or sectors they're not moving rapidly. It's just because this particular technology has been pinned up. There was also an article in the Post was titled Steve Jobs created a DJ Trump, basically speaking, because the first iPhone came on the scene, and that brought in the smartphone. Android was not there, but Android followed very quickly, and people became a smartphone society. And now that we have such things as a Facebook, etc., you have a situation where more and more people are accessing programs like this one via mobile apps. So the mobile app is replacing the desktop for many people, so everything is portable. And this is a worldwide occurrence. And whether you have Twitter or whatever you have, you can have it on the mobile. And many people literally sleep with the mobile. It's a 24/7 activity. They can communicate with the workplace. They can communicate with their significant other or whomever they want to communicate with. Perhaps they could communicate with Mom's Mabley. But anyway, nonetheless, this is the state of affairs that is out here now. And when you look at this administration, the theme, Make America Great Again, the America they're talking about was never great. And the American nation is what it is right now. It is seen by many, particularly immigrants, as a great economic opportunity, but it's starting to diminish. In other words, the wattage is going down. And this whole DREAM Act and this immigration fiasco does not bear well, because as other nations, particularly China, etc., the so-called emerging nations, emerge, there will not be the emphasis on people in those nations to immigrate here, because they can take advantage of the same business opportunities of there. They can also purchase various lines of business here, which they are doing. Now, at this stage, you will hear that some of those businesses outside of the U.S. are now putting plants in the U.S. They are, but again, as the U.S. economy diminishes in its importance, those businesses will, as they say, skedaddle from here, just as banks skedaddled from the city of London, which is separate, where the banks were. They moved on to Dubai and to Dublin and various other places, and this movement will continue. We obviously have side issues, distractions, like on the Korean Peninsula now, a very big distraction, And now we're in an era also of so-called natural disasters are exacerbated by DJ Trump's climate position and their climate situation in the state of Montana. Millions of acres there are being destroyed by fires. And we haven't had very much about that. We had about the Harvey storm, but not these fires. Mary was talking about that in a post on Facebook. Now, there are people that obviously have spoken out. The government in Mexico City, naturally, the founder, Zuckerberg, he's running for president, or thinks he'll be running for president. The Catholic Charities of New York and various others. And let's go to President Obama's post. I don't know where we read it all. But anyway, this is from Barack Obama. Immigration can be a controversial topic. We all want safe, secure, and borders and a dynamic economy, and people of goodwill can have legitimate disagreements about how to fix our immigration system so that everyone plays by quote-unquote the rules. Well, the American immigration system, they never played by the rules. But that's not what the action that the White House took today is about. This is about young people who grew up in America, kids who studied in our schools, young adults who are starting careers, patriots who pledge allegiance to our flag. These dreamers are Americans in their heart, in their minds, and in every way but one, on paper. They were brought here to this country by their parents, sometimes even as infants. They may not have known a country besides ours. They may not have even known a language besides English. They often have no idea they are undocumented until they apply for a job, or college, or a driver's license. Over the years, politicians of both parties have worked together to write legislation. The old man John McCain comes here to mind, that would have told these young people, our young people, that if their parents brought you here as a child, if you have been here a certain number of years, and if you are willing to go to college or serve in our military, then you get a chance to stay and earn your citizenship. And for years, while I was president, I asked Congress to send us such a bill. That bill never came, and because it made no sense to expel talent-driven, patriotic young people from the only country they know solely because of their actions of their parents. My administration acted to lift the shadow of deportation for these young people so that they could continue to contribute to our communities, our country. We did so based on a well-established legal principle of prosecutorial discretion employed by Democrats and Republican presidents alike, because our immigration enforcement agencies have limited resources. It makes sense to focus those resources on those who came illegally to this country and do us harm. Deportations of criminals went up. Some 800,000 young people were stepped forward and met rigorous requirements and went through background checks, and America grew strong as a result. But today, that shadow has been cast over some of our best, brightest young people once again. To target these young people is wrong, and because they have done nothing wrong, it's self-defeating, because they want to start new businesses, staff our laboratories, serve in our military, and otherwise contribute to the country we love. And it is cruel. What if our science teacher, our friendly neighbor, turns out to be a dreamer? Where are we supposed to send her? To a country she doesn't know or remember, with a language she may or may not even speak. Let's be clear. The action taken today isn't required legally. It's a political decision and a moral question. Whatever concerns of our complaints Americans may have about immigration in general, we shouldn't threaten the future of this group of young people who are here through no fault of their own and who pose no threat, who are not taking away anything from the rest of us. They are that pitcher on our kids' softball team, that first responder who helps our communities after a disaster, that cadet in the ROTC who wants nothing more than to wear the uniform of the country that gave him a chance. Kicking them out won't lower the unemployment rate or lighten anyone's taxation or raise anyone's wages. It is precisely because this action is contrary to our spirit and to common sense that business leaders, faith leaders, economists, Americans of all political stripes, call upon the administration not to do what it did today, and now that the White House has shifted its responsibility for these young people to Congress, it's up to members of Congress to protect these young people and our future. I am heartened by those who suggested that they should, and I join my voice with majority of Americans who hope they step up and do it with a sense of moral urgency that matches the urgency of these young people's that these young people feel. Ultimately, this is about basic decency. This is about whether we are a people who kick hopeful young strivers out of America, or whether we treat them the way we want our own children to be treated. It is about who we are as a people and who we want to be. What makes America is not a question of what we look like or where our names come from or the way we pray. What makes America is our fidelity to a set of ideas. After all of us are created equally, that all of us observe the chance to make our lives what we will, that all of us share an obligation to stand up, speak out, and secure our cherished values for the next generation. That's how America has traveled this far. That is how, if we keep at it, we will ultimately reach that more perfect union. Barack Obama, the former president of the U.S. On we go to Hurricane Irma. It intensifies to a Category 5, and the monster storm is moving closer to the U.S. and threatening Florida, even as millions across Texas pick up pieces from Hurricane Harvey. The Category 5 winds exceeding, that's 180 miles per hour. This is by Mark Bierman of the Post. Concerns centered particularly on the Florida Keys, a chain of islands at the southern tip of that state, tourist spot, home to about 80,000 residents. The area would be on the mandatory evacuation order beginning later today. Fear is also north into Dade County, the most populous area there with 2.7 million. Dade County Mayor Carlos Gimeza urged residents to stock up on food and water, to be very advised to this. And that is basically where they are right now. That people are in stores buying a bottle of water, etc. there. Residents and tourists were on high alert. This is in the Keys. You would expect that to happen. And that is that story. But you are having these so-called natural disasters one at a time. Is South Florida, Dade, Brea, and Palm Beach. These are three counties last year surpassed 6 million in population for the first time. So a lot of people there. This is I-95 and the Florida Turnpike. The main route west is 75, the so-called Alligator Alley. Anyway, we'll be keeping an eye on this. Let me just switch very quickly to the BBC. And this is a report from Islanders, shelter from hurricane. Irma here. This is in the Caribbean. It's a Category 5 at the highest possible level. Winds up to 300 kilometers, or 85 miles. It's moving the Leeward Islands and moving towards Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. And basically the same story here in the Keys. They have ordered mandatory evacuation. The eye of the storm hit the island of Barbados, which has a population around 2,000. So basically, rehatch of the story here into Puerto Rico and where it is, the predicted path that is riding on now. It will go, let's see, to Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Haiti by Thursday, and then on towards Jamaica. Now then on to Cuba, and by Saturday it could be in Florida. That's just a little map we're looking at here. And let me see if we can grab this real quickly here. That was from BBC on Irma. Irma, no doubt, is a big storm coming in towards Florida. We thought we would go to that. Now let me just check Reuters out here. Don't want to miss out on anything because the reporting is a little different. Makes landfall in the Caribbean is the headline here. Basically, that is it's to Puerto Rico. Let me just make sure we got this straight here. Hurricane Irma, one of the more powerful ones. This is in the Atlantic. Moved across the Caribbean islands. It is heading a mixture of winds and etc. to probably will land in Florida this weekend, as we talked about it. Category 5 there to Puerto Rico today, and from the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida. It could hit Florida on a Saturday, so everyone will have an opportunity to stock up on essentials, as one would say. And let me see, there was one other story. Probably won't have Kentucky. A trial could make the state the first one with no abortion clinic. And no doubt that could happen. Take a quick look at it and we'll go and do the sports. Unapologetic pro-life governor, no doubt, in a courtroom would make the first U.S. state without an abortion provider. This is in Louisville. The state will argue before a federal judge there. In 37 years of providing abortion, more than a dozen clinics closed down in our state. That's from Ernest Marshall, a doctor. So in other words, there will be no abortion providers there. Planned Parenthood of Indiana and Kentucky joined the suit because the same transfer agreement used to block a license from a facility in Louisville. So this is a trial, and we'll be watching this trial. Let's do the sports here now. And this is Major League baseball. Here we go. From last night. And we'll get to this. Dodgers lost again, incidentally. They've been going in the wrong direction. Their magic number is still 13, and they've not gotten there yet. Whoops. I'll have to get to the right day here. The Cubbies were in Pittsburgh. Pirates 4-3. In 19, an amazing game here played in Fenway Park in Boston. The final score was 3-2, Red Sox over Toronto. Hellacious game. I missed that game, unfortunately. The Royals and Tigers in the Motor City. Tigers 13-2. The Brewers and Reds in Cincy. Reds 9-3. The Phillies and Metros in New York. Phillies 9-1. Phillies are winning some games lately. The Nationals and Marlins in Florida. Nationals 2-1. The Twins and Rays in Tampa. Rays 2-1 in that contest. Atlanta and the Rangers was postponed. I assume rain. Who knows? Cleveland and the White Sox on the south side of Chicago. Cleveland 9-4 over the Sox. The Giants and Rockies in Denver. Rockies 9-6. The Yankees and Orioles in Camden Yard. Orioles 7-6 in that contest. And in 10, out in Oakland, the Angels and Athletics. A close game there, 8-7. The Angels over the Athletics. Astros and Mariners in Seattle. Astros pull it out 3-1. The Astros are rolling on. The Giants and Rockies in Denver. Rockies 9-6. The Yankees and wait a minute here, just a second. Yeah, the Yankees and we had the 7-6 already. What's going on here? In 10, the D-backs and Dodgers in Los Angeles. A game that we listened to 3-1 to score D-backs. And finally, the Cardinals and Padres down in San Diego. Cards 8-4 in that contest. Let me just make sure that we're not double dipping some here. I guess we weren't. There were some double hitters out here. So nonetheless, with fewer and fewer games going, we'll see how things turn out here. Worst 11 game skids. The Cubbies in 2016. Just a little sketch here. The Royals in 2015. And the Giants in 2014. And the Red Sox in 2013. There's something. Dodgers have lost 10 or 11, taking a D-backs team that had won the franchise record of 12 straight games. The Dodgers remain on a pace to win 108 games. They can take solace in that each of the last 4 World Series champs had 11 game streaks as bad as theirs. These are the ones that we just named: the Cubs, the Royals, the Giants, and the Red Sox. This will do it for us. The title was The Broken Dream. Not the broken window, but the broken dream. Something new every day. We'll talk to you soon from WBRN Radio and the Boston Red Network.